Welcome back to Marineford TCG. My name's Joe. We're here with the top 4 coming up of the AICHI. Last round we saw Bello Betty take down a green-purple Luffy, and the round before that we saw a blue-yellow Nami winning against a Zoro. And here's the top 4. Looks like we have one Enel, one blue-yellow Nami, one Bello Betty, and one blue-purple Luffy. That one Luffy that made it through to the top 8, making it through again to the top 4. Let's see what we see in this top 4 round. The Betty last round was absolutely dominant over that green-purple Luffy. He was having to use giants on 4 Dons and 3. It was crazy. Could not really have been much more dominant for the Betty. We'll see if we can see that Betty come up again, or if we'll see the return of the Nami player. I'm pretty excited to see about the Enel deck as well. Enel, not really a deck that many people were hyping going into the OP11 format, theorizing that maybe blue-purple Luffy would be able to spam too many massive dudes for Enel to keep up with, or that some of the aggro decks like green-purple Luffy might be a little too tricky with their cost-increasing shenanigans with the boat. However, into decks like Bello Betty and Zoro, Enel is traditionally pretty powerful, and he did gain a couple of new cards out of EBO2, and specifically that 10-cost Enel. Looks like we are going to see the blue-yellow Nami player return. This is the same guy that we saw in the top 16. He took down Zoro very tactically, very cleverly, out-aggroing the Zoro, it was a really good game. If you haven't checked that one out, make sure you do. I'm interested to see what this blue-yellow Nami is playing against. Will we see Nami take on the blue-purple Luffy at last? Who will be the one to take him down? Let's see what Nami's up against. So the Nami had some pretty interesting cards in their deck. In that other round, they had cards like Kikunojo and Kid. Oh, it's the Enel. Okay. So we do have the Enel player here. Very interested to see what their list looks like. Does it look very similar to old Enel lists? Mix it up a bit. Cards that are going to be pretty impactful for the Nami player in this matchup. That 8-cost Kid, trashing a life, and then giving your cycle to dig closer to more 8-cost Kids is going to be really good. The Kikunojo, Enel's not really going to want to carry that, because you give the blue-yellow Nami player even more resources. And they are going to have a crazy amount of resources as well. Oh, additionally to that, they have the Red Rock, and they have Pudding, and Enel loves playing with a book in his hand. So I imagine the Pudding, if it can come down, will be pretty impactful for this Nami player. Looks like Enel is going first. Both of these decks really going to be going the distance in this match, I expect. So first versus second, probably not too impactful. But I've got to say, my gut tells me that the Nami is going to have the advantage in this one. Just having access to cards like Kid and Pudding to starve resources out of this Enel, whilst also applying some aggressive pressure, I think it's going to be pretty powerful. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and then at the end, let me know if you were correct. Looks like the players both resolved their mulligans, and we're about to get underway very soon. Enel versus Nami in this format. Oh, here's the Enel player's hand. We do have a few 2Ks. Got that new Sanji blocker out of EBO2. A Brule blocker. You really want to see those in your life. And one Yamato. It'll be interesting to see if we see the Enel player choose to try and starve the Nami to get extra value out of that Yamato, or if they're going to go somewhat aggressive. I've not played this matchup myself into blue-yellow Nami as Enel. Nami having so many resources because of their leader effect drawing them a card when Enel takes life damage, you'd think would make it pretty hard to starve them, right? Because Enel loves just taking life. That's his thing. He takes all the life, he goes to 1, and then if you make mistakes, he can get extra card value. Well, Nami, if Enel chooses to take any of those lives, is going to get extra card value herself, and those are going to dig her closer to the important cards, such as that 8-cost Kid that we see right there. Also got a couple of 2Ks. A Cavendish, which is interesting. We did not see that in the top 16. Going to let Nami extend her hand advantage even further with that draw 2 trash one. And a Law Chump blocker in addition to the Vista Chump blocker that we saw in the top 16. A lot of Chump blockers seeing play at the minute. Blue-purple Luffy plays so many big dudes. And being able to counter out of like a 9k or 10k swing for just a one cost Chump blocker gets you some pretty crazy value. So we are going to see the Enel starting us off real soon here in AICHI. Let's get underway. And indeed, the Enel is starting. Going to be 1 Don, just going to be pass here. And Nami's going to draw a card. We do see a Vista blocker. And 2 Don, we are going to see the Vista blocker come down. We're going to put a Don on our Nami so we can activate the defensive effect, if we so choose. And then a pass over to the Enel. Will the Enel player be playing out that Brûlé perhaps? Nope, just going to be swinging 8. Nami's going to take, and we don't get anything too crazy off that trigger. Looks like it was a Firefist Pistol Redhawk. The Enel did draw that 10-cost Enel for turn. Not really coming down for a few turns yet. Likely just see 5, maybe play out that Cavendish. Could be quite impactful. We do see the 5 into the Enel. If the Enel player takes, the Nami will get to draw a card, which is always very nice. And indeed, that is the resolution. We draw another 10-cost Enel. And the Nami gets another Gum Gum Firefist. Or Gum Gum Redhawk, whatever that event's called. And we do see that Cavendish hit the field. Does the Enel have the removal? He does not have the removal for the Cavendish. We draw... What is that last card? I can't see that last card. Who knows? We could see the X-Drake come down and rest that Cavendish or the Vista. And then the Enel could attack into it. But that is going to be sort of initiating the Enel players starving themselves. So they might not love that. May choose to go aggressive. Oh, the last card is another Yamato. So we've got 4 boss monsters already. Looks like we're going to see 7 at lead. And we're just going to do the chump block with that Vista getting the value now. We do see the Brûlé chump blocker hitting the field. And then a pass over to the Nami. So there's another card that's going to be really good in this matchup. Red Rock. Red Rock being able to bottom deck any of Enel's boss monsters for just 6 Don is incredibly efficient, of course. Especially those 10-cost Enels that are really hard to interact with. That 11k power is crazy. And we'll see what the Nami player does here. Looks like he's eyeing up a 1-cost chump blocker lore. And is going to go with that. Keeping up that defense into the Enel. Will we see them attack with the Cavendish? Looks like we're going to start with 7 from Nami. And the Enel player is going to take. Gets a beige there. Choosing not to activate the beige's on trigger to deny the Cavendish from attacking. Nami's going to draw another card and draws into a 2nd copy of Red Rock. Which is going to be pretty crazy. Into those boss monsters later in the game. To keep up the aggression. Interested to see if we see this Cavendish attack. The fact that the beige trigger didn't get used is also interesting. Guess the Enel player is unsure whether or not the Nami wants to attack with the Cavendish. If you do, of course, it gives Enel somewhere to swing that isn't life. And Enel does traditionally love to starve. Well, we are going to go in, by the looks of it, get that draw 2, trash 1, continue to amass card advantage for the Nami player. Looks like we drew a 2-cost Teach and another 2-cost Teach. So that's a really nice card, right? The 2-cost Teach lets you put a card on top of your deck and then give 2 rested Dons to something. Your leader, one of your characters, can be anything. So in that way, instead of swinging, for example, 5 if you need to play on curve, you can use the Teach to put 2 Don on your leader, put 1 on top, swing 7, likely then draw that 1 with the Nami's leader effect. What's going on here? Sure, we forgot to resolve the Cavendish's swing before playing out the Teach. Enel player got a trigger with the Frankie, played out the Frankie, drew a card, and now we're going to play out the Teach. Okay. So back to what we were talking about. It lets you swing 7, and then likely draw that 1 that you put on the top back with the Teach, with the Nami's leader effect. So you go hand neutral and just get to swing for 2 Don more, which is pretty crazy. Also then having those 2 Don on your Nami leader, of course, lets you activate your defensive effects to go to 7. Looks like we are going to see the Enel player going with 5 into life. And we'll see the Nami use their leader effect, pitching one of those Gum Gum Redhawks to go to 7. And the Enel player now has 7 Don remaining. Does he have some kind of Rosh Enel? Something like that would be pretty good. Could also be attacking with the Frankie still. And does also have the Sanji blocker. Sanji blocker could be pretty good for cycling that hand. You've got to imagine they're fearing Pudding though. Pudding, always a card that you've got to consider into the blue-yellow Nami. And currently with a hand of about 10, it would get some pretty crazy value. Nami, however, doesn't have that yet. Counters out of that 7 from the Frankie with the Satori. And then the Enel player is going to play that Gadatsu, removing the 2-cost Teach, denying the extra value that that can bring, and passing it over. We do see the Nami draw. Is that a 3rd Red Rock? No, looks like he drew an Odin. So that Odin is able to attack twice, which is really powerful into a deck like Enel that needs you to have as few swings as possible. Of course, you can remove that with something like an 8-cost Katakuri, but the Enel does not currently have an 8-cost Katakuri. So, something to be considered. Looks like we are going to see that 8-cost kid come down on 8, trashing that last life, mandating the use of the Enel's leader effect, but also the Nami's leader effect. The Nami's going to draw a card, then the Enel is going to resolve. Interesting effect resolution timing here. But getting the Enel to start losing their resources already, it's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. And that kid is going to also give the Nami player even more cycle to get closer to cards like Pudding to further punish this Enel. Going to see a 6k hit come in from the Cavendish. Probably going at life. We're going to see it draw 2. And we still don't... We do see the Pudding. We see the ditch on the Odin, but we do see the draw of the Pudding. That Pudding is going to be brutal next turn currently. However, this Enel player does look to be thinning their hand a little bit. Down to 7 currently. To try and sort of play around the Pudding. And we do see 5 more from the Nami. Again, likely into life. Ditching that Sanji blocker. Okay, the Pudding is going to be less valuable now. But if you don't have to play the Pudding, sometimes she's done her job, right? If the Nami player next turn can go with something like another kid or even just a red rock, that's pretty good. We do see the kid's end of turn effect, drawing us into a 3rd copy of 2-cost Teach and ditching another one of those Odins. Odin, whilst very good, is vulnerable to the 8-cost Katakuri, so the Nami player choosing not to value it in this moment. We do see the Enel swinging 5. No Dons on the Nami leader, so we can't use our leader effect. However, we can simply give 1k. But we do also have the Frankie hit and the Godatsu hit to counter out of. Because we played that 8-cost Captain Kid on 8, we didn't get the Don on our leader. And you can see the value of that 2-cost Teach, right? That 2-cost Teach, if we still had it on the board, if the Godatsu had not removed it, we'd have been able to put 2 Don on our leader, swing a bit larger, of course, and then have that defensive effect online. So for 1 card and 1 brick, in fact, you could have got out of the Enel swing, the Frankie swing, and the Godatsu swing. Which is pretty crazy value, right? But the Enel player tactically taking that off the board instead of prioritizing the blocker, very smart, means that the Nami player has a difficult decision this turn. Might end up losing a lot of cards. We're deep in the tank on what to sack off currently. Looks like he's potentially looking at the Zeus. Does also have the Pudding, which the Enel player only has 7 cards in hand. And now that he's in that sort of phase where he's going from 1 to 2 to 1, he's going to start losing cards slowly to these sort of 5s and 6s that the Nami throws at him. Especially if we can find more 8-cost kids, right? 8-cost kid, trashing the life, but still mandating the use of the Enel effect. Makes them go -1 in hand, which is pretty good. We are going to see the ditch on that 3rd 2-cost Teach. So probably no more Teachers coming down in this game. We'll have to see if the Enel is going to swing with any of their other characters. Looks like we do see the Yamato coming down, popping that Cavendish and getting the heal. Very nice. Then we see 5 from Frankie. And we will see the ditch on the Pudding there, as we suspected. And 6 from Godatsu. Oh, but we got a Kikunojo trigger off the top. What a trigger that is. On KO, you heal a life. Really difficult character to deal with. And that 6k stat line is great. Replaces the Cavendish with his 6k stat line. What do we draw for turn as the Nami player? Looks like, oh, we got a 2nd 8-cost kid. I think that was the draw for turn, right? So we can use that again to trash another life from this Enel player, which is pretty crazy. The value you get out of this kid into Enel, it's so rude. They hate to see the kid. And we still have that chump blocker on the board, that law. So if Enel tries to play too aggressively into board or life, we've got that blocker, which is really, really nice. Looks like we're eyeing up the 6k swing with Kikunojo. And that is going to be the move. 6k at the leader, I expect. Not much reason to be swinging into the Frankie right now. Once you go to 7, that Frankie and that Godatsu swings are kind of just not very useful. And they're not going to love swinging into Kikunojo, right? We do see the 6 into life. Looks like Enel's got another Frankie trigger. Very nice. Another body. And another draw. Draws a Zeus off that. Another 2k. Not too bad. But again, Those Frankies and Godatsus, unless the Enel player wants to give Don to them, can't really swing into the Nami. And if he's giving Dons to the Godatsus and Frankies, well, he's not playing a boss monster, so it's a double-edged sword. We are going to see 7 from the leader into life again, and we are going to see the Enel take once more, draws a Shirahoshi off of that one, and then uses the Enel effect to trash one, and then heal. Eyeing up the 8-cost kid, yeah, the 8-cost kid much better for this Nami player than the Enel, and the second 8-cost kid comes down, trashing that final life. It was a Kikunojo! What a trigger that would have been. Both these players having some pretty crazy trigger luck is really cool. And then the final kid attack is eaten by the Brule. That's fine. We're going to see the draw 1 trash 1 from the first kid, ditching an Odin, and the draw 1 trash 1 from the second kid, ditching a Kikunojo, cycling out those bricks, drawing into, honestly, nothing crazy, but that's a lot of 2Ks in this Nami player's hand. Got 3 2Ks, 2 red rocks, a pudding, and a Kikunojo. And the Enel player is going to begin their turn with 0 life, which is, it's a scary place to be. He does, of course, have that 10-cost Enel, but that's going to be all of his Dons. So when the Nami player uses their leader effect here, that is going to negate the swings of all the Godatsus and the Frankies. Although it looks like that Godatsu was swinging into the Kikunojo. And we do see the Kikunojos on KO. Heal the Nami player back all the way up to 3. Countering the Yamato's 9-on-9 into the kid for just 1k counter. In the pudding. And then the Enel's effect is going to fire. Healing, trashing that Shirahoshi, but also getting blocked by the Chump Blocker Law. Presume that was swinging into the 8-cost kid. Gonna at least be taking quite a few cards out of this Enel player's hand as they weigh up their options. 6 Don for Red Rock, just getting rid of that 10-cost Enel seems quite promising. And we at the very least have a 9k swing into lead. We do see the Enel player take no crazy triggers, just another 2k out of life. We will see that mandatory Enel leader effect. Get the heal, trashing a Zeus in the process. Still, what do we have? We have 5 2Ks and a rush Enel for this Enel player. We do see a second 9, and we are going to take that 9, no triggers. Now, what's the Nami player going to do? Are they going to go all in? That's the question, right? You can play a very careful gameplay here if you use the red rock on the Enel and just swing 9, demanding 3 cards out of this Enel player and removing their massive dude. And it looks like that's what we're going to see. And we do see 9 into lead. And the Enel player has to give 3 2Ks here. Likely the double beige and perhaps the X-Drake or the Zeus. We do see the X-Drake keeping those 2 Zeuses and 1 remaining X-Drake. Red Rock on the Enel, clearing that massive dude. Very, very good. Denying the double heal for the Enel player with those 2 boss Enels. And then the draw 1 effects of the kids are going to fire. Drawing and then trashing a Cavendish. Drawing, is that another Red Rock? Nope, drawing and trashing an 8-cost Luffy. Okay. So now the Enel player, back to 0 life. Draws an ace off the top. The ace could be pretty cool. The fact that it heals and has rush, but doesn't cost you a card out of hand like the 10-cost Enel does. It's always very nice. We do see 5 lead from the Enel, likely just to eat the Nami's leader effect. Not going to be able to attack with any of the Frankies or the Godatsus, but that is what it is. You've got to use all 10 Don here to play out either the Rush Enel or the Rush Ace. And then we're going to see those last 2 swings, I assume, go into those 9-cost kids. 8-cost kids, 9k kids. Because the Nami player just piling on so much pressure. Now the Enel's hand is much, much lower. So lethal this turn is going to be even easier than last turn. We do see the Nami player take the 5, though. That's pretty interesting. We now see the Frankie swing 5 again. Looks like he might have drawn a Vista blocker off that life. And we do see the leader effect pitching the Teach to go to 7. And then we're going to see what the Enel chooses here. Is he going to play that 10-cost Enel? Or is he going to play that 10-cost Ace? We do start with a 9 into life, 9 into 7. And the Nami player is going to take once more. We don't see what he got there. And then this 10-cost Enel is going to come down, trashing the Ace to heal. Again into life, taking the Nami to 0. Enel's just putting the bus out. You're to win this turn. I've got a life. It could be a 0 cost. We've not seen any 0 costs yet. 1 0 cost could be enough to win this game. Let's see what happens. I can't quite see what's in this Nami player's hand. I don't know if he has any rush options. We know he plays the 8-cost Luffy, but we're starting with a 9. And we are going to see the Enel player take. No trigger there, just an 8-cost kid. There's the heal, ditching the kid. Will we see another 9 come down with the kid, or will we invest any amount of dons? 11 is guaranteed to go through. We do have another 8-cost kid. Okay, this is guaranteed now. Trashes the brulee. It was a trigger blocker. He'd have got there potentially. What a game. What an end. That was crazy. Those 8-cost kids really proving themselves to be insane into the Enel. Crashing not just one trigger, but like 2 or 3, right? That was pretty nuts. Massive congratulations to the blue-yellow Nami player for making it all the way to the finals. With definitely not the most meta deck, but hey, proving that you can do it against both the slow decks in Enel and the fast decks in the Red Zoro. I'm excited to see what this blue-yellow Nami player has to overcome in the finals. You know we'll be rooting for them, and I'll catch you soon in the finals of the AICHI CS.